Saunders' death in 1987. He'd been savagely beaten with a shovel and robbed outside his home. The 52-year-old newsagent who lived alone died of massive head injuries. In a reconstruction, Mr. Saunders' part was played by Chief Superintendent Don Carsley, the head of South Wales Police CID at the time. After closing his kiosk at the Cardiff Central bus station, Mr. Saunders had been drinking at a city centre pub. He then drove home in his van at 11:15, and it was here that he was attacked at Anstey Court in Canton. Police said at first that they were looking for a lone attacker. Chief Superintendent Carsley was asked if he was confident of solving the case.
I'm always confident, I'm an optimistic person, and I think that with a bit more public help and with the effort put in by my officers on this inquiry, then I'm sure we will be successful.
But more than a year later, at Cardiff Crown Court, it was 3 young men who were convicted of the murder on a majority verdict. Michael O'Brien from Ely has now served 7 years of a life sentence, along with his friend Ellis Sherwood. Also convicted was Darren Hall, whose confession had been crucial. But Ellis Sherwood and Michael O'Brien refused to accept any part in the killing, and their families have been campaigning ever since to have their case re-examined. The pair had an appeal dismissed 5 years ago, but still their families fight on.
The person that committed this crime is walking probably the streets of Cardiff, having a laugh. To think that he or they committed this crime, and there are people inside doing time for them, and they must be having the biggest laugh of their life.
The National Association of Probation Officers has taken up the 2 men's case. They say there are glaring inconsistencies in the evidence, particularly Darren Hall's confession.
Hall is described as extremely unreliable, as somebody who fantasised, and it looks as if he changed his statement on at least 11 occasions. Now, that was the key piece of evidence at the beginning which implicated the other 2. Hall has stuck to his guns since and maintained that his final statement was the truth. But for the court to rely so heavily on somebody who was clearly unreliable, I think is great cause for concern.
The call for a fresh appeal is supported by the justice organisation Liberty. They point to the fact there was no forensic evidence, important witnesses weren't called at the trial, and the only eyewitness is adamant that she saw only 1 attacker, not 3.
We think it's desperately important that there's a review of the evidence and that eventually there is an appeal, because we believe that 3 innocent young men are wasting away their lives in prison, and this is a tragedy for them and for their families.
Michael O'Brien and Ellis Sherwood are being held at Long Lartin High Security Prison. They should be due for parole in a couple of years. They know that by campaigning to prove their innocence, parole could be delayed. But they say their fight will go on regardless.